A not so good Steve Sarkisian trend that needs to change this weekend. What is it? I'll tell you on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. We'll talk about the Texas Edge Room finally coming together and also more fallout from Jerrick Gibson and Will Stone deciding to hit the transfer portal yesterday. But first, Steve Sarkisian has won 2 in a row and 3 of the last 4 against Oklahoma. His teams have also kept OU out of the end zone in 3 of those 4 games. Those are very positive trends. A not so positive trend is what's happened to Steve Sarkisian teams right after the Red River shootout. In Sark's previous 4 years in Austin, this of course year 5, his Longhorns are 0-4 against the spread and 2-2 outright in the first game following Texas OU. Hangover, letdown, trap game, whatever you want to call it, this week has been pretty stressful for Texas football in recent years. Let's take you on a not-so-great trip down memory lane. In 2021, Texas lost to Oklahoma that year. The Horns came home next week for a matchup against Oklahoma State. Texas blew a double-digit second-half lead, gave up the final 19 points of the ballgame, and lost to the Pokes. That was a part of that horrendous 6-game losing streak. That's a year we don't like to bring up very much. In 2022, Texas, of course, beats Oklahoma 49-0, the largest ever win for the Longhorns in the Red River shootout. The week after, Texas returns home to play Iowa State. The Longhorns were favored by 16 against a Cyclones team that went 4-8 that year. The Horns won that game. They only won it by 3, and Texas needed a 4th down stop in the final minute to preserve the W. Texas actually trailed early in the 4th quarter in that game, came back to take a lead, and again, held on for dear life to get a close win against a bad Iowa State squad. 2023, Texas loses to Oklahoma. The week after, the Longhorns play Houston in Houston. Texas went up 21-0. Felt like it was going to be a stress-free Saturday, but then the Horns had to hold on for dear life in the 4th quarter. Houston came all the way back. It was 24-24 early in the 4th. C.J. Baxter scored the game-winning touchdown with about 5.5 minutes to go, and Texas got a stop on 4th and 1 at the 10-yard line, right? Houston was driving with a chance to tie the game in the last couple of minutes. Texas bowed up when it needed to, and they were able to preserve the win. But Texas was a 3-touchdown favorite against the Cougs, and again, barely held on. And then last year, the Longhorns had a bye right after the 34-3 blowout victory over the Sooners. You know, Texas won that game easily. They were the number 1 team in the country. Their first game after OU, Georgia at home. And, well, do you need a reminder on how that one went? I don't think you do. So 2 wins in 4 years, and those 2 wins were far from the best performances we've seen from the Longhorns in recent years. And again, 0-4 against the spread. They barely beat a 4-8 Iowa State team. They barely beat a 4-8 Houston team. Now, this year's Kentucky team is not very good. Just like Iowa State, just like Houston, we could be talking about a 4-8 Kentucky team when this year is all said and done. Hell, they may end up worse than that. Like, the only guaranteed win that Kentucky has left on its schedule is Tennessee Tech. They're probably going to be underdogs in every SEC game that they have the rest of the year, and then they play Louisville in a rivalry game in their season finale. They'll probably be a dog in that one too. So that's the good news for Texas. Like, you are playing the worst team in the SEC. Yes, it's a road game. Yes, it's a night game, but this is the most ideal conference opponent that you could be playing in this potential letdown spot following a massive season-saving rivalry win. Now, all wins count the same. So even if Texas struggles a little bit and they let the Wildcats hang around, as long as they get a win, it gets them one step closer to Atlanta. It gets them one step closer to the college football playoff. Those are the goals that we all have for this team. Of course, if you're betting on FanDuel, you probably want more than just a close win. The Longhorns currently 12.5-point favorites. You'd like to have your cake and you'd like to eat it too. You'd like Texas to get a road victory and also dominate. You want them to play the way that they played in the second half against Oklahoma. I keep saying you as if I'm not a part of this. We want them to play the way that they played in the second half against Oklahoma. Because if the Longhorns play like that, Kentucky has no chance to win or even make this game interesting. If Texas resorts back to being the team that we saw against Florida and even at times against San Jose State and UTEP and Ohio State, things could get interesting and not in the way that we want this weekend. You know, we haven't used the phrase playing down to their competition a lot in recent years. Like that was sadly a staple for Longhorn football for the 12 years of suck from 2010 to 2022. We're not talking about that as much because of the success that this team has had in the last couple of years. I really don't want that phrase, saying, slogan, whatever, to come back. And it could this weekend, with how much of a talent gap and honestly a coaching gap that exists between Texas and Kentucky right now. During his Monday press conference, Steve Sarkisian spoke very highly of Mark Stoops, and he spoke very highly of Stoops' Kentucky team. Like, he made sure to talk about them in his opening statement, and then he had nothing but high marks and any answers to any questions when he was asked about UK. So he's saying the right things, including this one right here. You know, a lot of rival fans gave Sark some grief for this, but I like it. Steve Sarkisian on Monday was asked about his team's mindset coming off that big win against Oklahoma, going on the road to Kentucky. Here's what he said.
So we're evolving as a team. We're learning this team as we go, and we're in a very good position. As I said, we're 1-1 in conference play, and you know, moving on and moving forward, like this is an SEC championship game for us. You know, you guys are seeing the records in our conference, and there's a lot that's going to happen, and you know, a lot of people are going to eat each other here as we go, and we got to control our own business. But I think we're learning our team and our style of play and how we can play moving forward. And so a lot of positives there that you know, we can build on, and some things that we need to improve upon for sure. We're not a finished product.
This is an SEC championship game for us. Yeah, again, a lot of people are like, all right, come on, Sark. Kentucky's 0-3. They're in last place in the conference. They're the worst team in the SEC. What do you mean this is an SEC championship game? But again, all wins count the same in the standings. A win over Oklahoma and a win over Kentucky both count the same as you're trying to get to a conference championship game in December. And we talked about, you know, the not so good trend for Texas under Steve Sarkisian in the game after Oklahoma. Something that has worked and has been a very positive trend for the Longhorns in these last couple of years. This is the mindset that Texas had in 2023. Right? Texas was undefeated going into that OU game. They lost that game. And Sark was talking about how every game we play from here on out is a Big 12 title game. Sure enough, Texas needed to win every game the rest of the way in the regular season to get to Arlington. They ran the table. They obviously won the Big 12 championship. They made it to the college football playoff. Similar sentiment last year, right? Texas loses in October to Georgia. The Longhorns needed to run the table to solidify a spot in the SEC title game. What did Texas do? They went 5-0 to close out the regular season and obviously made it to Atlanta. So people might scoff at that notion. Oh, SEC championship game, it's Kentucky. Relax, coach. But that is what Steve Sarkisian said around this time 2 years ago when Texas lost in the regular season, and around this time last year when Texas lost in conference play in the regular season. Again, sounds coach speak, sounds cliche, but that's a thing that has worked, and that's a trend that has been a very positive one for Steve Sarkisian's Horns. So there you go. Started the segment on a low, a little bit negative early on, but we end it on a high. Keep that same mindset. Hopefully there is no hangover. Hopefully there is no letdown. Hopefully there is no playing down to the competition, and the Longhorns take care of business on Saturday night and can move on to Mississippi State. What say you? How confident are you in the Longhorns against Kentucky? Are you worried that there could be a bit of a letdown on Saturday night? Your thoughts on the Horns and the Wildcats. All right, coming up next, it took a while, but something that I thought was going to be a strength of this team has finally become a strength of this team. I'll tell you what I mean coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with our friends at Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. More than 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Supply House has real-time inventory and honest lead times, so you don't have to worry about punting projects, and their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. You don't have to wait 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 days. No business. No, next-day delivery with Supply House. They are going to take care of you. So join their free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Head to supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. Again, supplyhouse.com. It's real people, real service. And of course, the NFL season is here. We've got a game tonight and another phenomenal football weekend on tap. Our friends at FanDuel have an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. It really is that simple. You pick a bet, you put down $5, and if it hits, you're going to unlock $300 to use all across the app. FanDuel gives you so many ways to play: parlays, player props, team props, live in-game betting, more ways to win than anybody else and more ways to win than ever before. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime offer. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the free FanDuel app today and get started. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Before the season, I made a bold prediction, and I said that Texas was going to lead the country in sacks. They went out and rewarded my boldness with 0 sacks against Ohio State in the opener. Now, they bounced back. 4 sacks against San Jose State in week 2. Felt like maybe we were on to something. And then after that, 0 sacks against UTEP in week 3. That was a game that I think we all thought was going to be a stat sheet stuffer for the Longhorn defense and for the Longhorn offense, and it wasn't. So it was just 4 sacks through the first 3 weeks of the season. That was nowhere close to the top in America. The good news is those sack numbers have picked up for Texas as of late. 10 sacks in the past 3 games, including 5 this past weekend against OU. Are the Longhorns first in the country? No, they're 24th, 16 sacks as a team so far. But again, trending in the right direction. We are seeing a hell of a lot more production from the edge room, and they're starting to look like the room that I think many other Longhorn fans thought they were going to be going into 2025. Looking at the Oklahoma game in a nutshell, Colin Simmons, he looked like the preseason All-American that he was. 2.5 sacks. He was all over the field in Dallas. He was named SEC Co-Defensive Lineman of the Week for his strong performance in the Red River Shootout. He played his part. He played it well. But it wasn't just him, right? The Horns got contributions from a ton of dudes at edge. The true freshman, Lance Jackson, very limited snaps. He had a sack and a couple of quarterback hurries. The Arkansas transfer, Brad Spence, in his first year at Texas, also his first year playing edge, making that transition from off-ball linebacker. He had a sack and a couple of TFLs and a nice stare down after a fourth quarter sack on John Mateer. Yeah, that'll ingratiate yourself with this Longhorn fan base. You're going to get a sack on the Oklahoma quarterback and then stand over him and talk a little smack in that game. Oh, yeah, we're going to love you a little bit more. Jackson and Spence, again, very limited snaps in that game, but also this season, they rank 2nd and 3rd behind Colin Simmons on the team in pressures this year. And Brad Spence ranks 1st in pass rush win rate, according to Pro Football Focus, even ahead of Colin Simmons. So once again, smaller sample size, but those guys are making things happen when they are on the field. Steve Sarkisian was asked about his edge group on Monday, and he said, quote, "We felt like coming into the season, the edge room could be a real strength of the team. It's a very versatile room, and that was kind of intentional with how we recruited it. You know, when you've got Ethan Burke and his style of play and Zena and his style with the length and physicality they have, and then Lance Jackson being in that same role, and then to go along with where Colin Simmons is at or where Colton Vasek is at, where Brad Spence is at, it's a very versatile room that way," end quote. So Sark was with me. And when we were in Atlanta for SEC Media Day, Steve Sarkisian talked about this being the deepest defense that he's had in his 5 years in Austin. I think a lot of that depth was in regard to his defensive front, especially on the edge. He felt like he had a lot there, as did I think a bunch of other people, not just Texas fans, but people all over the country. And it took a while, but it feels like those guys have gotten things going. And I didn't even mention Burke, Vasek, and Zena. Obviously, Sark did. I haven't talked about them myself. Those guys can also play. And we know that Pete Kwiatkowski and this defensive staff, they like to rotate up front. If you have depth there and you can keep guys like Colin Simmons fresh in the fourth quarter because they're not having to play every snap early on, that's going to help a lot as games go on, as the season goes along as well. And you can't play scrubs in this conference, right? Like, I don't want no scrubs. A scrub is a guy that can't get no playing time from me. I think that's what TLC said back in the 90s. Could be off on that. I'll check after the show. You can't play scrubs in this conference. Brad Spence, Lance Jackson, those dudes aren't scrubs. Ethan Burke, not a scrub. I wish he'd play a little bit more. Now, he did get 27 snaps against OU, way more than he got in the Swamp. I think he's a hell of a player. He's a senior. He's really good. I feel like I'm crying from a yacht here. Like, that's where Texas is, where a player as talented and experienced as Ethan Burke, who I think is a Sunday player, is just a rotational piece in that edge room. Colton Vasek can play. Zena looks really good too. I think it's Umeo Zulu. Everyone has a different pronunciation of his name. I usually just call him Zena. I should have stopped right there. But what I'm saying is, you can rotate guys like that when your backups are as good as Texas's backups are. And as we look at the Horns' next two games, the opportunity to raise those sack numbers will be aplenty, right? Kentucky ranks 61st in the country in sacks allowed. Mississippi State, of course, next weekend's opponent, they come in at 110th in the nation in sacks allowed. Neither of those teams great up front. It's why they have a combined 0 wins in SEC play so far. I should say it's a big part of why they have 0 wins in SEC play so far. You can rack up some numbers in these upcoming road games. And look, sacks are great, but edge production isn't limited to just sacks. You know what else is great? Forcing turnovers. John Mateer's 3 interceptions this past Saturday, they all came due to an uncomfortable feeling in the pocket because of the Longhorns pass rush. Like, Texas was able to get close to John Mateer on all 3 of those plays. He panicked. He either threw it up for grabs or he threw it behind a receiver. Those turned into interceptions. Texas had 3. They could have had 4 or 5 with the way that they were making life miserable on Mateer. This pass rush is making things happen. You get to Cutter Boley, you get to Blake Shapen, those guys can give you the football. After the trip to Dallas, it appears that the Longhorns are finally starting to wake up on the front 7. And if that's the case, and this performance continues, the ceiling of this defense rises immediately. It's already very high, and they've been very good outside of the Florida game, despite not getting a bunch of sacks and getting consistent pressure. If you add that to everything else that they have going on that side of the football, then this ceiling is the roof, in the words of Michael Jordan. And hey, maybe, just maybe, my preseason prediction could come to fruition. Texas probably needs to play in a few extra games beyond the 12 in the regular season to make that happen. But hey, I'll take that. Where do I sign? I think we would all sign for that right now. Texas top 5 in the country last year in sacks. It helps that they played 16 games. I'd like for them to play 16, maybe even 17 here in 2025. So great to see the edge room stepping up. Obviously, they're a big part of Texas's run defense. Kind of buried that part for the final few seconds of this segment. But yeah, they did their job in setting the edge and holding Oklahoma to less than 50 yards rushing as a team. More of the same, please. All right, one segment left on a Thursday show. We dropped an instant reaction episode to the Jerrick Gibson and Will Stone news last night. Now that a little more time has passed, we'll give a few more thoughts and talk about what's next. Interesting here. Here's what's next for Texas at those two positions. We'll get to it next here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, shout out to our friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anybody else. Their attention to detail is unmatched. From footwork to breathwork, they know that athletes sweat all the details. They bring that same intention with how they craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. And you can make everyday drives feel like anything but smooth handling, intuitive controls. And how about this? All-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, so you can drive with confidence wherever and whenever. Like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. It's Mazda. Move and be moved. All right, final segment, Thursday edition, Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Yesterday, Steve Sarkisian was a part of the SEC coaches teleconference that happens every Wednesday, and he was briefly asked about the reports that running back Jerrick Gibson and kicker Will Stone are leaving the program. He confirmed those reports. When asked about what went into their respective decisions, Steve Sarkisian really didn't elaborate beyond the facts of the situation. He just said, quote, "They wanted to redshirt and transfer," end quote. To the point, didn't go into any details. That was that. Now, Sark did give a little bit of insight into what happens next for Texas at both running back and kickoff specialist. On the running back workload, he said, quote, "Who will take those carries is everybody, whether that's Trey, whether that's Christian, whether that's James, whether that's Cedric. When he gets back, we've got ample bodies. We should be okay in that aspect of it all," end quote. No surprise there, right? Trey Wisner, obviously your number one tailback. CJ Baxter, your number two when he gets back healthy. James Simon had 3 carries against OU. Jerrick Gibson only had 1. It had already felt like Simon had passed Gibson on the depth chart. Now we know he's ahead of Jerrick Gibson on the depth chart because Gibson's no longer here. Christian Clark also got a carry against Oklahoma. We know the staff likes him. He may have been ahead of Gibson on the depth chart as well. So Steve Sarkisian telling us, hey, we'll be fine. We've got 4 guys that we feel good about. That's all expected. What perhaps is a bit unexpected is not something that Steve Sarkisian told us, but something that I've been told behind the scenes. Freshman Michael Terry III, a high 4-star signee out of the San Antonio area, who was listed as an athlete by the recruiting services, the number 1 athlete in the country, according to ESPN. He apparently has been getting some run at running back this week. Now, Terry's been playing wide receiver so far in his Texas career, and I say playing very loosely because he's only appeared in 1 game so far, that 55-0 route over Sam Houston. So hadn't been playing in games a lot, but in practice, he's been a receiver. Yesterday in practice, today in practice, been playing running back. He's 6'2", 220, 225, a big body. And funny enough, Michael Terry, the reason this staff believes that maybe there's something to this, Michael Terry was the scout team running back ahead of the Florida game. Has a similar build to Jaden Ball. Ball is 6'1", 230. Again, Terry 6'2", about 220, 225. I wonder if the Texas defense struggled with Terry the way they struggled with Jaden Ball in the swamp. If that's the case, we might have something here. The staff and the team apparently impressed by what they saw from Michael Terry. Good straight line skills, has some good change of direction too. And if you turn on any of the tape from his high school career at Alamo Heights, and this guy ran a lot. He played a lot of running back in high school, ran for nearly 1,000 yards and 20 touchdowns as a junior in 2023, 684 yards and 11 touchdowns in 2024 on only 86 carries, damn near 8 yards a clip, and got into the end zone a lot in his final year of high school football. Again, check the tape. He made a lot happen with the football in his hands, and I get it. He's not quite going up against SEC talent, but we are talking about 5A high school football in the state of Texas. Not horrible. So maybe there's something there, short term and perhaps long term, trying to figure out exactly what role Michael Terry III is going to have with this Longhorn program. Again, hasn't really carved one out in the first half of his first year, but maybe there's something. I don't think running back was the initial plan for him, but maybe it is now. Maybe it's just a short-term deal. Who knows? It's worth bringing up. Texas making a change with the departure of Jerrick Gibson. Also worth noting, Ryan Niblett, who has lined up in the backfield a bunch of different times so far this season, he has been working at running back full-time, obviously when he's not working as a punt returner on special teams. But Niblett, recruited as a wide receiver, went over to defense for a while, back to the offense, now a running back. That's his offensive position, obviously outside of special teams. So the Longhorns have enough depth. Said this yesterday, even before the Michael Terry news dropped, but they've got enough depth at the position to withstand this loss, and now they're adding a little bit more. Regarding the Will Stone news, don't want to leave him out. Steve Sarkisian confirmed on that teleconference call yesterday that Mason Shipley is going to take over kickoff duties for Texas. No surprise, Shipley has already done that in 2 games this season. 16 kickoffs, 4 went for touchbacks. Did have 1 go out of bounds. Got to clean that up a little bit. Texas does have a couple of other kickers on the roster, a redshirt freshman and a true freshman. But again, because we saw Mason Shipley do kickoffs in 2 games where Will Stone was not available, it always felt obvious that he was going to be the guy. The Longhorns should be fine there. Shipley did that at his previous stop at Texas State, so he has experience doing this as well. And, hey, just kick the ball out of the end zone. Kick the ball out of the end zone, and we will call it a day. So there you go. Again, if you missed last night's instant reaction, we talked a little bit more about what Texas is losing with the departures of Jerrick Gibson and Will Stone. Today's more about what happens next, but check out last night's episode, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you want more breakdown on those guys leaving the program at the midway point of the year. Interesting timing, but Texas should be perfectly fine. And that's going to do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, all of those great things. Really do appreciate y'all's continued support of what we're building here on Locked On Longhorns. For your next listen, check out Locked On Bets. I talk about them all the time. Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers, they are your one-stop shop for all of your sports betting needs. Expert analysis, game picks, the lock of the day. They've got you covered with everything you need. You can find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. More thoughts on Texas and Kentucky, more sound from Steve Sarkisian, and plenty more Longhorn football chatter coming your way on a Friday show tomorrow. Almost the weekend, baby. Almost another game day. But that'll do it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.